Welcome to the Ever North Podcast, where we bring on the explorers, dreamers, and discoverers to find out what their true north is in life. Hope you're all having a great day and enjoy the show. Today on the show, we have the guys behind the Backpocket Podcast, Andrew and Declan. Welcome to the Ever North Podcast.
Stoked to be here.
Yeah, thanks, brother. This place is sick, by the way.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So with like the quarantine and everything, like what have you guys been up to?
The work from home life for me. Decky's still on site.
Yeah, I'm actually still working, which is as crazy as that sounds. Yeah, it's been nice actually, because every other company that's associated with ours, like in terms of, because I'm an engineer. Sorry, I should back up. I'm an engineer. I do podcasting and comedy, but for my engineering full-time gig, I'm doing that 40, 50 hours a week. We're building the parking garage at the Terminal 1 at the airport right now, and all the other owners and everybody else, they're all quarantined, work from home. So we don't have anybody looking over our work anymore, which is actually kind of nice. And then driving in and out of work, there's no traffic anymore. Like we got here to this podcast 15 minutes early, not to brag.
Yeah, we were on time, or much earlier than that.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys sent me a message and it was like 15 minutes prior to, and I didn't even like have everything set up yet. So I'm like, oh geez, because I just got back from work too.
Okay. Nice.
But yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Nice.
you're still going to WeWork, which is,
Yeah.
it's frowned upon,
Yeah.
but it's definitely a group setting of less than 10
Yeah.
because people at WeWork are like, I'm staying at home. Yeah. So
Yeah, no, that's very true. Just because this is something that's very like new and different. So I'm curious, has this affected your guys' podcast at all for like guests that you're trying to bring on, guests that you're like looking for the future?
Yeah, it affected us pretty big. We had a big guest that was going to be at the Mall of America. She's a fitness woman, and she had this big event at the Mall of America at the Lululemon, and we were going to film there on site, and it was going to be like this it was going to be a little cool like stepping stone for Backpocket doing an out of studio podcast, and with the quarantine, that got canceled.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also like it's not going to affect us from a content standpoint just yet, because we've backlogged like 4 or 5 episodes now, so we got a month's worth of podcasts to release. So there's not too much concern there, but just today, like thinking about who to book for the podcast going forward and like how to approach it, because I mean, if you think about it, like we can have Austin like you on anytime, right? Like we didn't think twice about getting together in this apartment recording. Like, granted, part of it would be like, okay, we're young people in America who don't really care that much about the quarantine stuff.
We're at very low risk.
We're very low risk, so we don't see a lot of it. But like,
We're the young people.
if we want to bring on like a bigger name, or if we want to try and like go after someone who's maybe 40 years or older, I mean, I really don't think anybody would be interested in coming over to a college type house in Uptown with 5 other guys, like as clean as we may think it is, or how clean it probably is. I don't think any of those people are going to be interested in coming over. So I don't know. We might have to change our attack a little bit in terms of like who we're getting on, but
yeah, and our podcast sits on the 3rd floor of our home. And we built out the attic space. It was kind of like an unfinished attic, and we paneled it all in January and cleaned it up really nice. Got a ton more space than we had the last year. Added a couple more cameras and stuff, but it's in our own home, similar to your podcast. It's in your apartment, and you live with 2 roommates. We live with 3 roommates, so there's 5 of us. So when a guest comes over, now you have to be like cautious, and you have to think of your other roommates that are like, hey, I don't know what they might be touching, and they could bring corona into our house. So like now our roommates are kind of getting a little standoffish and stuff. So there's all the moving parts that you don't think about.
Yeah, we also don't know if we have corona, right? Like it could have already been through it, through us already. Like we just went to Chicago. Like there's no guarantees that we don't have it, So
yeah, we've been campaigning around letting everyone know that we didn't practice social distancing over St. Patrick's Day weekend, and we were in the wrong. We were absolutely in the wrong. We should have been practicing social distancing.
We had to release an emergency podcast for that reason. We have a new campaign, Elbows Up, Fins Up.
Yes, fins up.
It's all about the fins nowadays, dude. And for the strict listeners, we just touched elbows. That's pretty much what Fins Up is nowadays. Mm-hmm. But dude, yeah, it's it's going to get interesting, I think. I don't know. How about you? Is it like, has it changed your strategy at all, or how's it affect you right now?
Yeah, for the podcasting, just for like people that, so like I have a coworker that I went on a trip with recently. I actually went to Thailand.
Oh, you also went to Thailand?
Yeah, went to Thailand about like the same time that Declan went to Thailand.
Really?
Yeah, almost the same time period.
Where were you?
Went to, so inside of Thailand, went to Bangkok, Chiang Mai, and then Koh Lanta.
Okay. Where's Koh Lanta?
Koh Lanta is more, oh gosh, it's like in Krabi.
Okay, so you're south. I was in
south.
Krabi and Chiang Rai.
Chiang Rai?
Super north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your favorite spot in Thailand?
Ooh, good question. I would say Chiang Rai.
Chiang Rai?
Like in terms of like a livable, just like all around great space, I would say.
Yeah, well,
Chiang
we're
Rai.
sitting here right now looking at the Ivy brand longboards. And I mean, that's just a serendipitous moment for Decky because he went on the Ivy Adventure, which falls under the Ivy brand. They do longboards and they do these adventures. And Steve Weigel runs the company and came on our show and invited us. And Deck literally on the podcast was like, I am looking into that. I'm pretty much in. I just got to figure out some financials. That was like on the show in October. And then I think you booked your flight like 2 or 3 weeks later and you were in for the trip in January, which was so cool.
Yeah, it was dope. How about you? What were you doing down there to begin with?
To be honest, just traveling there and also working.
Oh, you were working?
So
Okay.
yeah, coming back to like the question with like the podcast guest, I also went there with a coworker, and we were kind of there like when the coronavirus like started gaining more like popularity, I guess you could say, and like growing. And because of that, like he has a girlfriend that has some like just like health issues, and if he were to get it somehow like through just like him and me like doing a podcast, and then he were to transmit that to his girlfriend, it could be like pretty serious.
Wow.
So just like thinking about like the people that could also like be connected to, like just being like mindful of that, I guess.
Well, same thing with us. Like my roommate on that trip was Jonah Stillman, who he was the 21st person in Minnesota to actually attract the coronavirus. So I was like, that's why I'm like, there's probably a good chance I have corona, but at the same time, he more likely attracted that when he was. When he travels for speaking engagements and stuff, and he was in Europe like a couple weeks ago, and he thinks he got it there because when he came back, he was feeling awful.
Yeah.
But like to think that if I did have it or something, I work with a guy who's like 62, and he's not even taking chances at showing up to work now. Like he will not show up to work as long as I'm there because of the chances of him possibly attracting it or something like that. So going from like us three knuckleheads here, a very low risk, like we need to be more cognizant again, like Andrew's saying with social distancing. It's not social distancing because of us. It's social distancing so that we don't affect the high risk people. It's never been, it's not about us. It never was.
It never was. Well, I'm so like ill-informed. Like I think I have like a decent grasping of what's going on, but like the idea that like 2/3 of the population needs to have coronavirus before it actually like starts diminishing and like fading away because no one has immunity to it. Like everyone will receive coronavirus. It's just the severity of actually like what all your symptoms are. But to think that 2/3 of the population need to have it before you start seeing the curve decrease is absolutely bananas. And that's like the whole mindset behind flatten the curve. We could just pump the 2/3 of the population to have it right away, but then everyone would be sick and they're the extreme cases in the hospital and then overbearing beds and all that stuff versus like you flatten the curve and then you make it last. And it could be this like quarantine lifestyle could be like a 6-month thing, which is mind-boggling.
Yeah, especially to be alive like during this time. Like it's so eerie going out in like Minneapolis. There's hardly any people walking around. Like everything is shut down from like the restaurants that you normally go to. Hardly any traffic here. It's just
So
like
eerie.
very eerie.
Oh, it's so weird too. Like I just went to the grocery store yesterday, and it was just like a much more interesting and weird experience. Like, have you been to the grocery store yet?
Yeah, I go to Whole Foods and they're like all out of rice.
Yeah,
like people
right.
are lining up for the meats to get the meats. I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah, like it just like increases the like severity almost. It makes it like you're starting to like feel the impact when you go there. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go get some PB&J materials, and I'm like, well, there's no peanut butter, there's no bread. So like,
Well, you start to learn like what brands people don't like. Because like I went to Cub Foods this morning, and they were like restocking the shelves a little bit, but you could see all the stuff that got just wiped out. And I went to the pasta line, and you know, like your the Blue Box brand or whatever that.
Yeah.
That one was all gone. Like the only noodle left was the farfalle, which is like the bow tie type. So everyone was taking, you know, your masticholi, your rigatoni, your actual spaghetti, but no one was fucking with farfalle.
Yeah, no, it's the same with the Dasani too, I think.
Yes.
Like no one's taking Dasani water.
Right.
For like bottled water.
Like Aquafina
That's
off
so
the
funny.
shelves, Voss off the shelves.
that's when you know you're truly surviving, is when you like grab the Dasani off the shelf. You're like, I need this now. I just saw a meme today that said the only frozen pizza left on the shelves was the pineapple pizza.
Oh
I
yeah.
felt pretty good about that.
Pineapples don't belong on pizza.
Yeah, we kind of took that stance out of nowhere.
Yeah, we took that stance. Do we believe in
that's
it?
funny.
Kind of.
Kind of, yeah. So I guess we should back up. We did a
partnership with Devani's.
right. We had a podcast in partnership with Devani's, and one of the things that we're trying to do, which you can probably relate to this, is like trying to do more content to like promote the podcast. So like posting a video of us talking right here is good, and it's very direct, like, hey, we're doing a podcast together. But it's just like when we did that 3 times a week over and over and over for 40 weeks straight, we were like, okay, this is getting a little bit monotonous, and our audience is probably just like willing to scroll over it because it's just nothing's really new.
And the fulfillment for ourselves was kind of running into a wall because we were just doing the things repeatedly and monotonously.
Exactly. So this year we're trying to basically collaborate with each person that comes on our podcast. So the founder of Devani's came on our podcast. So we came up with the idea of going out at like Nicolette Mall here on Nicolette Street. And Andrew, we made a sign that said pineapples don't belong on pizza. Now, Andrew had already alluded earlier, like, you know, we don't necessarily believe that. And the reason we're saying that is because you know, pineapples have lives too. No, but I'm joking. But no, it's more so that we were trying to like workshop an idea of like, okay, like obviously do with a sign, that's like the big thing, but
Dude with a sign's a big thing.
do
Yeah.
with the signs, like that's the content play, that's the eye grabber.
It's a
But
motive.
we were also just like, people always try and make pizza like so much more than it needs to be. Like you can have a hamburger pizza, you can have a taco pizza, you can have macaroni and cheese pizza, which is like, what's the difference between that and just normal cheese pizza? So we were like, you know, why not just like pepperoni? So the idea of like this idea that the pineapples don't belong on pizza, it's the thing that everyone gets fired up about.
Right.
Supposedly, we didn't know that going in, but it's true.
It's usually like the 3rd or 4th pizza that gets like when you're in a group setting and you're like, what pizza should we order? Well, then you got the pepperoni guys, you got the sausage guys, the supreme guys, and then there's always like those one or two people in the back was like, let's get the one with the ham and pineapple, and everyone's just like, all right, like we'll get it, like we don't mind it, but no one really wants it.
Yeah, if you're gonna have 4 pizzas and you're gonna eat 4 slices, like, I mean,
We can mix it in there, but
Yeah.
don't be the first to vocalize
like,
it,
yeah,
you know?
exactly. Like, I'm not gonna eat 2 Hawaiian pieces, you know.
No one ever
2
does.
peps, easy.
Every time.
Where do you lie on this? I guess we should
For
ask.
pizza?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Do pineapples belong on pizza?
Yeah.
Pineapples. I will eat it, but it's not like a first option,
Right.
second option,
Yeah.
or third option. It's like down the list.
Right.
Like I probably will eat it, and I'll be okay with that, but it's not like something that I'm gonna seek out. It's pineapples on pizza.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Apparently, people were very passionate about this.
Yeah, we
on
got a lot of
Instagram.
people, a lot of negative reactions,
A lot of negative
which is good
reactions.
because controversy is the air we breathe.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all
Yeah.
about it. Sorry,
No,
what were we
it's all
were
good.
talking about Thailand. So you were recording podcasts down there?
No, we were just working remotely. So working remotely in Thailand and also just like traveling. So it's
Where'd you get that
amazing.
idea?
So my coworker Daniel, he really enjoys traveling.
Is this Daniel Okan?
Yep, Daniel Okan.
Okay.
So you guys had his sister on,
Yeah.
Angie Okan.
Yes.
We need
Yes.
to get Daniel on.
Yes. So yeah, he loves traveling when it gets like cold out. Basically saw an email come in from like Scott's Cheap Flights, I think. And within that email, it just had like a discounted price for a round trip ticket to Bangkok. And that's basically how the conversation started. For like him doing it, it's something that I've never done personally, is like take a trip like that far on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically was like game for doing that. And went over there, stayed in like some hostels in Bangkok. That was okay. Where did you guys stay, Declan?
I stayed in a, it was called Ben's Guest House up in Chiang Rai. And it was like honestly just like a nicer grade type hostel / hotel. Had a pool. It was great.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Nice. Did you guys stay in any like Airbnbs or just hostel? Just a hostel mainly?
It was yeah. It was just hotels and hostels, resorts.
Yeah.
Well, we stayed in a resort in Krabi, but it was more of like a hotel hostel in Chiang Rai.
Okay, cool.
Hostel life is nuts, though.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Such close quarters.
So had Daniel Okan been to Thailand?
Yeah, he's been to Thailand.
Okay, so that's cool. So you were following, you were able to follow someone who's been around, knew the area a little bit.
Yeah, very grateful for that, because I think if I wouldn't, it would have been like craziness.
Overwhelming.
Like first time especially.
And that was with Declan. He had an experience. Steve Weigel has been there. He lived there for a year. So that was like the dopest thing about the trip is he had all the connections in the world when the party of, what was it, 15?
Yeah, 15, 16 people.
Yeah. So that's really cool that you were able to like have that similar experience of, because that's the neatest thing when you get to follow someone who's already paved the way in a new place and they have the experience of, hey, this person knows this and this person knows that, and they can take you to all these cool places because of that.
That's nuts.
And now you're going to be in that similar situation at 20 years old. You're already going to Thailand, working remotely. Austin, that's killer, dude.
That's the dream.
So
dude.
cool.
That's literally the dream.
Yeah.
Like, would you go back and work remote like that? Because it's very affordable. Like, your cost of living's extremely low.
There's definitely like pros and cons to it, I think. The biggest thing that I didn't really enjoy with it is obviously not like being in a routine and stuff. And that's something that I enjoy doing, is like being in like morning routine and being able to, you just feel like you get more work done as well when you're like here. But in terms of doing it again, I definitely would. I would have like structured the trip differently, I guess, and stayed at like Airbnbs. It really depends on your personality type, I think. So for me personally, I'm like an introvert. So if I would have done it again, I probably would have got like an Airbnb and then like a co-working spot if you work remotely. And then if you're someone that just really enjoys being with people, talking with people, I would definitely recommend the hostels for sure.
Because it's kind of a 2-in-1 at the hostels. Like, they have workspaces and then you just kind of bunk up, which is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you can be, so in Bangkok, there was about 8 people to a room.
Okay.
And because that's usually the first destination that people land on when they come from wherever they're coming to, they usually come to Bangkok.
Right.
And a lot of people are just like sleeping in the hostel room. So when you walk in there, you're not trying to like make any noise or open your bags. So that's a struggle. But then also like trying to sleep and yeah, it's craziness.
Dude, that's nuts. Yeah. I think, if you've ever heard of the book 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss?
Yes.
Yeah.
I read it.
I was gonna ask, like, because that's his thing, is like part of that dream life or deal. That liberation aspect is like, once you're able to automate your lifestyle, your business or the thing that you're doing, like, go live in a place like Thailand where your cost of living goes from, maybe like a $25,000 or $3,000 budget out here to $700 to $1,000 in like a Bangkok.
Yeah.
So that's definitely like, as a young spry 24-year-old, that's something that like I get excited about is like the idea of like just working remote, maybe just like podcasting for a year or something like that and just going.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. I mean, I did have the idea so I brought like just my lavalier mics with traveling, thinking like, oh, if I meet someone, I could possibly do a podcast. I guess I didn't make time for that. But through the co-working, you're able to meet a ton of interesting people through that. And I mean, just hostels in general too.
So was there like a WeWork in Bangkok that you were working out of?
There is a WeWork in Bangkok. I actually didn't go to it, but you can go there.
Okay.
But there's plenty of co-working spots just where you travel, so it's like pretty easy to find them.
Okay.
For
cool.
sure.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Sick.
I did want to touch on the books though, because you mentioned the 4-Hour Workweek. Do you guys have a favorite book? Do you guys both read?
Yes.
Stuff? Okay. Do you have a favorite book?
Most recently, my favorite book is Shoe Dog with Phil Knight. I got it for Easter from my mom last year, and I had put it off reading it, and I read it over the summer, and that book absolutely flipped the way I look at entrepreneurship. Phil Knight is a dog. Like, he didn't really start Nike or start the shoe company until he was like 30, and he was working for this other company called Tiger. And that journey of him grabbing shoes from Japan and flipping and selling them in the United States and kind of attacking this West Coast market, to evolving into all these trials and tribulations and failure after failure after failure. And him just having resilience, and then just like one-off connections where people were just believing in Phil Knight just because of who he was. And he was just a prick. In reality, like, he wasn't bringing anyone into his circle, but still people were like attracted to his work ethic. And the reason why Phil ended up having like the most success is because the people around him saw like his vision and wanted to help him. And like, that whole story, the whole hero's journey of Phil Knight from an entrepreneur standpoint is like my holy grail right now. Like, when I'm referring back to like what I want to be doing with digital marketing and what I want to be doing with Backpocket, like, I'm thinking the Phil Knight mindset.
Yeah, that story is insane. Like, just them being able to keep the business alive, getting in like shoe orders. I think they eventually got in some like pretty deep trouble just with like Tiger, Nike, their shoes. Mm-hmm. Him going over there when he was like young, being able to talk with foreign suppliers to get his shoes created. Like, it's an insane journey.
Yeah. Well, and his freaking co-founder leaving him for love in Hawaii when they were going over to Japan.
In the very beginning.
Yeah. In the very beginning. Like, just such a cool story. I was going to say Shoe Dog was my favorite as well.
I gave it to him afterwards.
Yeah. He gave it to me, and then I read it, and I was like,
our whole house has now read it, and we're all like on the same wavelength with Phil Knight.
We're huge Shoe Dog guys. Yet we're
Even
wearing Adidas.
Adidas.
Shit, man.
What is it? I think Adidas or Nike, one of them has on their within their company information, it's like to make the other one like fail or something along those lines, where it's like very competitive between both the brands. And you could tell that like at the beginning of the book. I think it was
Adidas had been established a little bit, and Nike was coming into play. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've also read it. It's on your shelf here.
Yeah, I read it. It was a good book.
Dang, you're 20 years old and you've probably read more books than me total.
So I see you have the Blue Zone Solutions on there. You know,
yes.
Dan Buettner lives in Uptown, Minneapolis.
Used to. He doesn't anymore.
He sold that house?
He sold that house. But he moved to LA now.
Oh, dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know Dan Buettner?
Or did you read?
Have you read that book?
I did read that book, and I did hear that he was from Minnesota.
Yeah.
So I found that very interesting, and they also like incorporated studies. I think with it was either the college or Mayo Clinic. Okay. I can't remember, but it was interesting that he was like from Minnesota.
Yeah.
And his house is right along Lake of the Isles, and he has a chessboard, public chessboard, like sitting on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So during the summer months, we went over to the house and like played chess there and like took a bunch of photos and tagged
a photo shoot.
Did basically a photo shoot in our Backpocket like t-shirt and tagged him on all the posts. And he was like out of town, and he's like, "Oh, it looks like some two knuckleheads are having a good time with my chessboard." Like that was like
I recognize that place.
Yeah. So he wasn't even there, and you guys showed up at his house.
Right.
Correct. Yeah. Once we figured it out, because
he's from St. Thomas as well.
He's from St. Thomas,
where we went to school.
Yeah, and he's got in this Blue Zone. I mean, that's like his brand, and the rock on the centerpiece of this chess thing, this public chess table says "Welcome to the Blue Zones." So that's how we made that connection of like, I wonder if this stands. When we did the photo shoot, tagged him. He's like, I recognize that place. Yeah. So now we have confirmation.
Mm-hmm. Is he someone that you'd like to have on the podcast?
Yeah, we've been trying to get him on for like a year.
A little over a year. He's turned us down a few times, just being like timing wise and like not being in the state. But we know someone now that's interning with him. So that's a great friend of Backpockets.
Yeah,
so
Sophie. She's got to help us out.
Exactly. So we're slowly infiltrating Dan Buettner's inner circle.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So Declan, you didn't get to share your favorite book, do you? You have a favorite?
It's tough, man. We already talked about it, but I would say the 4-Hour Work Week. That's shaped. When someone gave it to me, they're like, yeah, this is the entrepreneur's Bible. Like, you got to read it. And I think it's definitely similar to Shoe Dog. I would agree Shoe Dog was probably one of the ones that really helped me like have a really good positive mindset about wherever you are on your journey. But even with Tim Ferriss's model and how he goes about it is almost totally different, right? It's very organized. It's like, this is how you should do it. But it's good to know, like, I like that. I like that kind of structure behind it, but I like having both books in my back pocket per se, because I got one that says, okay, here's like kind of the most efficient way to do it. And Tim uses his own example of how he didn't do it that way, but how he formulated this path of deal. Then you look at it on the other side with Shoe Dog of just like a genuine good story of entrepreneurship, and you can see how the two kind of merge. So I'd say both of those would be great. And then the Harry Potter series. That's what got me like into reading.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I do kind of like want to hop back into some of the stuff regarding the back pocket.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
So how did the back pocket initially come to be?
The Backpocket started in 2017 was when we released our first podcast, February 2017. So we've been at it for now just over 3 years, which has been like crazy to think about. And now we've released over 250 podcasts. We released 120 in 2019, like 3 a week for 40 straight weeks, super dedicated. But it started in college. Deck and I were juniors, or going into our junior year, and we were sitting in cubicles, absolutely absorbing podcasts, from Part of My Take to Joe Rogan and everything in between, just laughing our asses off and texting each other. He's in Denver interning, and I'm in Chicago interning. We're sitting in our cubicles, Snapchatting each other like, did you listen to this Part of My Take episode? Did you listen to this blank, blank, blank? And just had a really close connection from that. And moving into our junior year, we both played football at St. Thomas, and we were never starters playing football. We were always the backup scout team guys that worked their ass off, that were playing for the love of the game. Because as a D3 athlete, you're also not receiving any scholarship athletically, so everyone's there for the love of the game. And then even Declan and I, to a little more extent, not seeing the field on Saturdays. We're there just because we wanted to keep hitting people. Declan as an outside linebacker and I as a safety. But that kind of like mentality too, as scout players, we kind of had like a gritty mindset, and we're like, all right, well, we're average guys. These Part of My Take guys who are now blowing up in the '1 sports podcast, those guys are also average to an extent. So what's the outlier there? Like, why are they able to do it and we're not? It's because we hadn't taken any action yet. And so Declan was the kind of the driver from the get-go, being like, hey, Andrew, let's go do this, let's go do that. And we bought a $40 mic, the blue Snowball from Best Buy. And that kind of $40 investment in January of 2017 was like the reason. All right, we spent $40. We're in college. That's a big lump money. That's a lot of money for us. We have to follow through now. That was like the initial push, was just Declan being like, we are just as average as the rest of them, but we just have to take action. We just have to take that first step.
Yeah, and then in addition to that too, like we. Going kind of off the Part of My Take thing, like two average guys who are taking over the sports world because of their average takes, or making fun of the professionalism behind this. During election season in 2016, we were like, we should do the same thing, but just do it with politics. Like there's all this professionalism behind it. We should just go the other way. Took that that idea home to our moms, and they absolutely hated it. They're like, for the love of God, please do not start a podcast on politics. And took their advice, and we showed up again in January, February, going to buy a mic, and still really not having any idea of what to do. You know, like we were like, okay, we're obviously not doing a political podcast. Let's just attack it from this average mindset, see what happens. And so we go and buy the mic. We're on our way back to actually record our first podcast, and Andrew looks at me, he goes, what do you think of the name Backpocket? Like, you know, safe, tucked away, kind of always there when you need it, just like a podcast. Like, once you post a podcast, it's never going anywhere. Let's go with that. And I was like, sounds great to me. Like, I want to do something. I wanted a name that was kind of off color, very specific, and that's what that's what we ran with. But the coolest thing I think about both those things, and probably what the listeners, the Evernorthians, what do you call your listeners? Do you have a name for your listeners?
I would say I don't have a
okay.
name
The
for them.
Evernorthians for now. what's interesting about it is like, there's nothing really special at all. We basically just spent like 5 minutes highlighting how two white guys started a podcast when they were in college. Like there's plenty of other people who have done that. There's not a lot of things innately special about that. But what's cool is like we've been doing it for 3 years, and I can definitely tell you what we started with on February 2017 of what we thought Backpocket was and what we thought we were talking about then is entirely different from what we're talking about now. What it was back then but at the same time, they're very similar. So like back then we were talking about our average qualities and what's in your back pocket with friends, family, anybody, like professors, all these different people. And they're giving us these great answers, and we're like, awesome. Let's keep having these types of conversations. Where now it's like, this mentality, it's a mentality. Backpocket is a mentality. Looking at asking that average quality, while it may be funny, and that's why we started it, was because it's a comedy podcast, and being average is funny. Being average is that humility. The being average is that engine that kind of keeps you grounded. And then what's in your back pocket is you. Your life experiences, the things that you do are in your back pocket. And now being able to kind of put that all together as like an actual podcast and present that to people, that the whole pitch of it just becomes simply a comedy podcast highlighting stories of success from ordinary average people doing the extraordinary. Mm. How are they doing those things? Through being average and through the things in their back pocket. Mm. So it's been really cool to like go on this 3-year journey, starting it, not really knowing what it is, but keeping the core values of average, quality, and back pocket, sticking to those for 3 years, and gaining confidence in those things, and then growing something that you really do care about.
Yeah, so you guys have kept the messaging basically the same for the 3 years.
Right.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how many times people have come to us and say, hey, time to rebrand. Hey, I'm not really understanding what's going on. Still to this day, Andrew's mom told us this past week, like, I don't know what the hell you guys do with this thing. Like, I love it to death. I really don't know what it is, but like, please, like, be safe out there. Something like that.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever thought about like just quitting the podcast, like doing something else? Has it ever got to that point of struggle for you guys?
I had that twice since it started. So in 2017, when we were recording podcasts, we weren't super consistent with it. We were actually recording like 3-hour-long podcasts and then like doing editing on the back end and chopping it down to an hour. And that was my responsibility. So I would like listen to 3 hours worth of podcasts, and then I'd take me another 3 hours to chop it down to an hour. Just completely ridiculous. And I'm in college. We're also playing football. And I had a girlfriend, and I was like, this is backwards. The initial like starting of it was super fun, but now the intrinsic motivation behind it is zero. And I find no fulfillment in doing this.
This was like 6 weeks in.
6 weeks in. We had recorded, you got through the initial, like going through it, emotions, right? And now you're into the redundancy of doing it. And during that time, I don't know if this statistic holds true, but it was like 90% of podcasts don't get through episode 7. And we were like sitting right there, and we hadn't even heard this stat yet. But Dec looked at me and he was like, Andrew, if you don't want to edit that much, then let's try to record an hour authentically and let's release it. But I do not want to stop doing this. And I know that you don't want to stop it either, but we just got to find like that middle ground to where we can continue this forward. Yeah. And like I had a couple other reasons of why I didn't want to do the podcast anymore. And us being like these average knuckleheads kind of talking about whatever, cussing and, just being college students. I was like, employers are not going to want to see this. Like I'm applying for business jobs. I'm afraid that someone, a higher executive is going to see this podcast and be like, Andrew's a fucking knucklehead. I would never want him working for my company after he hears a couple of our episodes. Well, lo and behold, that whole theory got smushed because I got my job from the podcast. But that was like my mindset behind it. And Declan was 100% the reason why I was just like, hey, Andrew, just keep moving forward and let's see what this turns into. We're going to find more love doing this than you can see right now. But both of us are just trying to figure out how to get the podcast on iTunes. We had to get like an RSS feed in 2017. And like there was so many weird one-off things that 6 months, 12 months later, where I'd already been like
doing it for that long, and it had already changed. Everything had already like totally shifted.
In 3 years, a podcaster can get their stuff on everything so much cleaner than 3 years ago. There was so much stress going into like actually getting your podcast out to an accessibility standpoint.
So they didn't have like Anchor back then.
No Anchor.
No.
Anchor was introduced. They like it might have been I would say May of 2018 was when
After
we got
graduated.
on it. Yeah, right after we graduated.
And that was in the first months of it being active.
Right. Yeah, we were like one of the first Anchor podcasts and like hosting on there. And we had originally hosted on our website for the longest time. Never had analytics. Like never knew how many people listened. And I'm honestly kind of thankful.
For 18 months, we did not know how many people listened to our podcast.
Yeah, we just did it. And I'm actually kind of thankful of that, to be honest, because, you know, those are just like, when you see those numbers, like it's you know, you always want to like preach like, yeah, don't care about the downloads, but
We really couldn't care.
we really had no idea. We had no potential to even try to care, which was great actually.
So it was kind of like Declan just like keeping you motivated through
Yes.
that time and being able to restructure the podcast just to like keep it going basically.
Yes, 100%. And what's really funny about that is moving through about 20 months in. So this was year 2 fall. So we had just graduated from school and I had not found my full-time job yet. I was working part-time for this lake weed removal company out in Minnetonka. A super fun summer job, but something that's not paying the bills. And then I started working a temp job and for Robert Half, and I was with United Healthcare, and I was just like, I found like a stable job that was paying the bills, but not something that I loved. And I looked at Declan and I was like, the podcast is taking too much time away from me actually trying to find a career. I have to put this to a stop because I need the headspace to find out what like I actually want to be doing. And I think that was like the most pivotal moment for Deck and I with the Back Pocket, because Deck looked at me dead in the eyes and goes, what do you really want to be doing? And I like started working through in my head. I was like, well, really, I want to be doing Back Pocket full time, but I can't because it's not paying the bills. So I have to find something else. He's like, well, what about the Back Pocket do you love? And it's like growing brands, building off a story, being organic and authentic behind our message, and, you know, just kind of walking what I'm talking. That's really cool. He's like, well, can you find that in a career? And he's like, well, I can do that in marketing. And he's like, do you have marketing friends? And he's like, and I'm like, no, I don't have any marketing friends. I'd get a job if I had marketing friends. And Deck's like, bullshit, Andrew. We've already had like 7 people on our podcast that are marketing wizards. Why not reach out to them? And I'm like, no, they don't want to hear from me. And Declan, if you want to tell the story, you can jump in. But Declan, the next morning, took the leap that really kickstarted what I'm doing now.
Yeah. So the story goes, so Andrew had just gotten the temp job at United Healthcare, and this was the first time he had like a corporate job ready to rumble. Stability, right? Not working an hourly job. He was starting to just get consistent money through the door, which is great. That's when he came to me and was like, yeah, I'm just going to kind of, you know, take the gas off the pedal a little bit. Like, I don't need to like look for more jobs, even though like I don't really like this. And I was like, that's kind of bullshit. Like, you probably should look for the thing that you actually want to do instead of like taking it easy. He just said like, fuck you, and then went to bed. And then the next morning, my car broke down on the way to work. And it was like right when it got cold out, it was like 20 degrees. And I was waiting for the tow truck to grab my car when I was about an hour out. And so instead of like just hanging out and being cold, well, I guess I was still cold the whole time. But anyways, the whole idea was like, well, like, you know what? I'm just going to think of like, we've had a great year 2 of podcasting. I'm going to think of all the different people that Andrew could text right now to see if he can get a job. And so I gave him a list of 8 people. Number 1 on that list was Giselle Ugardi, who had just gotten a job at like a Media Bridge Advertising. And I was like, hit her up. Let's see what happens. She's like a mom to us already. We've known her for 3 months. Why not? And sure as shit, that was Andrew's first job. But like, actually, they hired him, a couple months later.
Zero experience in actual like corporate marketing.
Right.
She took a leap of faith with me.
Yeah, because she liked us.
She liked us. And also because Declan had... the theory or the thesis behind both of those stories is Declan's been in my corner the whole time. And like when I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, he's ready to like just, you know, poke a brick out and be like, hey, there's light there, dude. It's not easy to get any closer, but you just got to take that next step. And I could say the same on his end too. Like that's the coolest part, is this dynamic relationship that Declan and I have been able to establish through being, again, I'm going to resort back to being the scout team players at St. Thomas, where we weren't getting any gratification from externally. No one was telling us good job. No one was patting us on the back. We had to go find that internal fulfillment. We had to find like, oh, I love doing this because I can help this team win a national championship, and I get to be with my brothers and have a silly goose time on the football field. And that kind of mindset, whenever one of us is failing to see that, has been there for each other. And we've also built a community of other people around us that also kind of, you know, gas us up at times when we feel like we're stuck in the mud. And that is ultimately why we continue to do Backpocket, is because whatever Backpocket is a reflection of Declan and I. And if we want to be the best versions of ourselves, if Backpocket wants to be the best version of itself, Declan and I need to be the best versions of ourselves. And that's what motivates the growth of Backpocket, because we always are like, oh, what can we do better? Oh, we did this pretty well, but Boatchella was a whopping success with 150 people on a riverboat in the middle of summer. How can we do it better next time? Do we do it with the same type of atmosphere with a couple new nuances, or do we do twice as many people, 3 times as many people? That's a one-off experience. With the podcast, do we release 3 a week? Yes, we can do that.
Do we want to do that?
Do we want to do that?
I don't know.
Now we don't want to do that. We want to do more experiential marketing with the brands outside of the podcast.
Yeah. So it ranges far and wide. And it's really, it just really is cool. Cause like, I don't know if you could already tell this, Austin, but like we're pretty much exact opposites. Like I'm super, super extroverted, very, think out loud type guy, social, very, I would just say I have like a lot of crazy ideas. I'm usually always trying to think extrinsically, what's the vision. Andrew is what's step 1, what's step 2. So like the combo between that mindset, his mindset and my mindset it's been really fun to just work through problems is really what it becomes, is once it's me trying to figure out the problems and then us solving them together.
Yeah. So it's more of like so would you classify yourself as like an introvert then, or extrovert?
I wouldn't say you're, well, I guess you can answer, but I think he's pretty extroverted.
Yeah. And it's more so, I'm like extroverted around the people I trust.
Okay.
And I can absolutely be the spotlight in the room if like need be. I'm like not gonna hide away from that, but I'm not gonna be the first person to walk in the room and like light up the party immediately, if that makes sense. I don't like that box, and that box is a tough one to be in. But ultimately, Deck and I just work well with each other because we are very transparent in every single thing we do. Whether it's like him being an extrovert or me being an introvert, it's kind of irrelevant to the fact that Declan and I know how each other operate and what motivates us at the end of the day. And the fact that there really are no like closed doors to what we kind of go after. If he makes a move that I don't like, I'll let him know, like, hey, how can we do this differently next time? It's not like, hey, fuck you, we're never doing that again. It's more so, let's try to do this in a way that's healthier for the both of us. And sometimes it hurts the podcast because both of us need to be on the same page, but more times than not, it's leading to not like a hockey stick growth where it's like, this could be the peak right now, but we'll burn out type of thing. But let's like slowly continue to do what we're doing. And neither of us are doing this thing that we're talking about, Backpocket, full-time. Declan's a full-time engineer working on a job that's multi-million-dollar thing at the airport. And I'm a digital marketer that it has a little bit more flexibility with my schedule to incorporate Backpocket more into my day-to-day. But at the end of the day, this is not something that pays the bills. It's something that we'd love to, but right now, Deck and I are able to find, similar to how you're treating Evernorth, to find the love of it in it without having to fund it monetarily. We can just put in our love and passion into it and just continue to let that aspect grow. We're not relying on it to pay our rent. We're not relying on it to pay our student loans, which is honestly, we're super thankful for. If we had to, we'd probably start losing out on the reasons for continuing the Backpocket.
Yeah.
So doing the podcast together, when was your most recent disagreement with each other, and how did you guys resolve it? I guess. Very interested.
Hey, I got a small one.
Okay.
One thing that I'm starting to get it more on the train. TikTok. TikTok a day keeps the doctor away was Deck's mentality about a month ago. And Still is. And I'm like, we're transitioning from creating content to more engaging with people outside of the podcast, like more face-to-face stuff. Like that was kind of like the vision for 2020 is try to get ourselves to interact with as many people as possible face-to-face versus being up in that studio. So like my mindset is having more live shows, doing more things with brands outside of the podcast. And Deck was like, all right, but we can enhance our reach with TikTok, you know, the Gary Vee mentality, get on TikTok early and see what happens. I'm like, that's exhausting. We have to create more content now. And Deck's just like, one a day. Let's just do one a day. Well, we pumped out like 4 weeks worth of videos. And over the weekend during St. Patrick's Day, I opened the TikTok app and we had like 800 notifications. I was like, what the shit's going on? And 2 videos, one from a week ago and one from like 3 or 4 weeks ago, caught like the For You page and quote unquote went viral. And we went from 100 followers to now I think we're around 1,000, in about 72 hours. And it was like, damn it, Deck's right again. A TikTok a day, you never know what happens. It's not necessarily about that we went from 100 to 1,000, but it's like the fact that like you can reach people just by being organic and doing what we're not necessarily following TikTok trends. We're just putting out back pocket things and incorporating it into like what TikTok likes visually. And then it hits home with the right audience. And now people are circling back to our YouTube page, our Instagram page, our podcasts are getting more listens. And it's like, holy shit, this is actually right, Deck, you bastard.
Right. And it's not like that's a great example actually, because like we split it up. So like I do 4 TikToks and Andrew does 3. And one of the days I just like texted him like, hey, I always forget what the schedule is. Like for real, I forget the schedule. Which you got to be back on the train tomorrow. On TikToks.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And but yeah, I'm glad we talked about that. But like the idea,
he goes, you missed your day. I said,
right? Yeah. We didn't post.
We didn't post on a Thursday. I posted on Wednesday, and I didn't have one ready for Thursday, and I didn't say anything. And then he woke up on Friday and was like, "You didn't post on TikTok," and I just responded to it, "Fuck TikTok."
Misspelt it. Yeah. Fuck, I should go screenshot that. Yeah. That would actually be a good TikTok.
Well, lo and behold, 24 hours later, we go from the 100 to 1,000. Like no joke. Like it couldn't have been worse timing for me and better timing for Deck in the sense of like, hey, just continue. The whole thing around it is just get our brand on as many things as possible and make it unique and make it personal.
Make it us, dude.
Make it us, because
make it fun to post a TikTok a day. Right. You could easily freaking rip your eyes out posting a TikTok a day. I'm sure some people listening are like, I barely know what TikTok is and I do not want to be dancing on that platform. Andrew and I haven't posted a single dancing video.
You have.
We have one.
The one with he did a stand-up bit where he walked out.
I did do that, but that was sick. That was
seen you at the movies. He's got good hips.
Sick, dude. I got great hips. I'll say it, especially on this podcast.
But yeah, we are just doing back pocket things on another platform,
dude. And the crazy thing too, which like we're starting to realize, is like the TikToks are kind of a content generator. So like, because we have plenty of content of us doing, funny and entertaining things. Well, it turns out like Twitter is funny and entertaining stuff. So is Instagram. And then sometimes so is LinkedIn. And when you're posting on all 4 of those platforms and kind of sharing the love of content across each of those platforms, it's crazy what happens. Like one video on TikTok could be 300 views. We posted it on Instagram, gets 10,000 organic views out of nowhere. It just like, it's kind of a crapshoot of like what catches fire. You never really know. Mm-hmm. Do you play around with this stuff at all? Like, are you posting a ton of content everywhere? Or?
For TikTok, so I recently just got TikTok.
You did?
I just do it so I'm like starting to do it for Ever North.
Yeah.
Just with like the podcast.
Sure.
And everything. What I did for content, I just repurposed like the Instagram content.
That's what we started to do.
Oh, you just how did that work out for you? Just repurposing the content.
Initially, it was fine. Like it would get a little bit of traction, But then it was running into Deck and I like, this is not very fun. Like, we're not having fun repurposing it because we're not actively being creative on there. And that's when I was like running into the lulls of like, I don't want to go back to old videos and like chop them up specifically for this. And kind of incorporating more of like, what can I capture today when I'm going to the grocery store for 30 seconds, like just around the thing, and then just put that in my back pocket, go home, and then see what I can do with it.
Yeah.
That has been like way more fun.
Dude, yeah. The
video
thing, the crazy part about content is like your freaking phone, spending the time, just like being cognizant of like, oh, that's funny, or like maybe that's a TikTok, just like having your TikTok eyes always open. Like it could be anything. Like that was one thing that I thought was interesting too, is like people always think it's like TikTok is just like dancing and stuff, but if you spend enough time on the platform, you realize there's like a ton of different types of content. Like you can have content, like if you like the video I just took of the ultra wide shot of me walking through here to this view of the city is a TikTok. Like that is just, it's a cool looking view, it's aesthetic, and it's 5-10 seconds. It's like, that's, once you start to think that way, and in terms of just like that kind of content capturing, then you start to realize like, oh, it's not like, it's much different than what I originally thought.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more fun too.
It's a lot more fun. And like, that's not to say we're not pushing podcast content from the past.
Right.
Like that's still on there because we're trying to, incorporate our brand of the podcast as much as possible. But with this whole 2020 movement of trying to get our podcast outside the studio, the mission behind that is to turn Backpocket Podcast into Backpocket the brand. So when people look at Backpocket, they don't think of a podcast. They think of Backpocket, this ordinariness that also so happens to be extraordinary because they have a passion to continue to make it happen type of thing. But that's what we want Backpocket to be seen as. So we have to do our best to not only show them podcast things.
Right.
So when you ask, is repurposing content valuable? Absolutely. We post 2 or 3 times a week of us sitting in the podcast, and they do well. They're not the ones that are gonna, so far they haven't caught the For You page and necessarily like skyrocketed our likes or views, but it still reinforces our brand, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you guys have any advice for people that are starting a podcast?
Stay consistent. That's like the hardest thing to do, right? I mean, we tried to do one a week to start and could barely get it out, and then almost crash and burned after a couple of weeks. So I'd say stay consistent, but at the same time, like similar to like a TikTok a day, like it's only gonna happen if you're having fun, if you're invested, and through that process, you're gonna find a rhythm. So like stay consistent, find the rhythm, and then like. Again, I said, have fun doing it. You're gonna struggle with, what you want to talk about because there's so many different things to talk about. But don't feel like don't devalue that struggle. Like there's a ton of value in just like throwing content out there, even if you have no idea what it really is. So I would say just the consistency is like probably the biggest, my biggest piece of advice.
Mm-hmm. And look at your podcast as if you're having conversations such as like our formats with Evernorth and with Backpocket, where you're bringing on other people onto the show, look at that as your time to have coffee with someone that you look up to, or someone that you just look like is a close friend of yours, or someone that you want to get to know more.
You're curious
about. If you really just want to make it like a thing that you love to do every day, just look at it in that way, where you're having a cup of coffee with a friend and you actually just get to sit down, put your phone away, and catch up. Learn about their story, get to share some personal experiences, how you personally relate. Like at the end of the day, I have no idea what you're going to say next. I kind of have an idea what Declan's going to say next, but we're all just trying to relate to the 3 of our lives together to a certain degree, give each other a little bit of advice, maybe another connection that we could lead to, whether it's Devin being a guy that we want to talk to, or you want to meet Jonas Stillman, something along those lines. That is really what the podcast is. Like, you are winning at the end of the day. Your listeners can take away as much as they want, but you're the one that gets to sit down with Andrew and Declan. We're the ones that get to sit down with Austin and learn about you and Evernorth. And that is the coolest thing. Like, who gives a fuck if you have 10 listeners, if you have 100 listeners, 1,000, 1 million. That's literally irrelevant unless you're really trying to make money off of it. And kudos to you if you're able to have 1 million followers and have sponsors and all that. But at the end of the day, you're able to have a conversation with someone that you care about. You get to learn from them, and then they're going to learn from you, and that's what leads to. And that's why Backpocket is truly the thing that is my engine, and Declan, speaking for Declan, is his engine, because we find that intrinsic reward from it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the drop off from 90% of people that quit their podcast after like 7 episodes, I think that just has to probably majority deal with just people specifically starting a podcast for like the monetary vision and like getting a ton of listeners and it just like launching right away. So you really just have to be purposeful with like the reason you're doing the podcast and just like continuing it.
Yeah. Really. When did you start this podcast?
Started at the beginning of 2019. So a little over a year.
Nice.
Sweet.
Yeah. What's been your biggest takeaway so far?
Biggest takeaway, definitely be consistent. Just tailor it off to yours. But also another big thing that I found is try to build like a system for your podcast almost.
Like the back end of it?
Yeah, like the back end. So if you're creating content, try to build like a system around that. So for example, on the Instagram story, I kind of like already have a pre-created like image, and I just go in there, kind of like replicate the same systems. So be willing to dedicate time to build out those systems and make them good, but also be open to like doing new stuff too. Like just don't be forced on that.
Yeah,
right.
That's your Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week right there.
Yeah,
building the system
for sure.
behind it, but giving yourself time to learn what was like Taekwondo or something that he learned and became like a world champion. Something crazy, like he was a floor wrestler or something.
Because he figured out like one rule that made it different, that he just looked at it a different way, and that's why he won so many times.
Yeah.
So Tim Ferriss.
So Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
I cut you off.
No,
you were gonna
that's
say
good.
something else.
But Andrew, you said that you like when you're starting podcasts and you're initially like doing 3 hours, cutting it down to an hour, got very draining for you. That would also tailor to just like people that are starting out, like being able to build like that good system, to be able to continually to do it and know how long it takes you, what your kind of like expectations are just to continue, I think would help a lot.
Yes.
I agree. Why have you continued to do it?
Why have I continued to do this? Honestly, I just really enjoy bringing on like people like you guys, and it's something that, so it's looked at similar to, we can get political, like democratic debate, where you bring on those people and they only have like a short few minute maybe spiel about their opinion on things, topics, and you're really taking these people that have expertise in such deep levels, experiences, different things that they can bring on and share. And that's very almost never talked about, I guess you could say. Like Bernie Sanders could come on the Joe Rogan podcast and talk about something that's on a completely different level than just like him being a politician. So like being able to have people on, dive into things that they do professionally, but also just like what they enjoy doing as well. I think is like purposeful, and also finding people's true north in life as well.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I like that. True
Yeah.
north. What do you mean by that?
True north would be very much like purpose, like mission,
Your
motive.
Northern Star type of mentality.
Yeah,
Nice.
for sure.
How have you found? I mean, because you're 20, Cameron too.
Oh, Cameron.
I always want to help you out with that.
That is crazy though, Austin, when you said you were 20 years old.
Yeah, it's
Fuck,
crazy.
man.
I mean, you look 20, so I'm not like overly
Yeah,
shocked,
you look
right?
young. People say that, and it's like, yeah.
And it's like I look 18, right? Like it's no different.
With a mustache.
And Andrew's our dad. He's 39.
Right.
But what, like, I mean, from your perspective, like developing this whole brand and it's just like this really awesome mentality. Honestly, like I really do enjoy like all the stuff that you've really put out there.
Thank you. Appreciate that. You guys as well, for
Yeah,
sure.
no, I've followed you for the last year, and I've seen like how you put your brand out there, and it's just impressive. It's really cool. But being so young, like what have you found that is like most beneficial to find your true north? And is it always evolving or any like that?
Yeah, well, I definitely think it evolves for everyone. I think it's just almost you just have to go through life and be willing to take different opportunities and going through life in maybe like a not suggested way, I guess. Like, so I left college after a year, and when I came back for that second year of college, I guess like 1.25 years, I guess, if you want to be like exact. But when I came back for that second year, something in like my gut just told me that I did not enjoy what I was doing, and I didn't enjoy what I was going to get afterwards, I guess, for that. And I knew that just being able to build brands, do digital marketing was something that I just like really enjoyed. And it's also something I experienced too. So being able to hop into something that you might think, oh, I might enjoy digital marketing, might enjoy building a brand, just try it. If you like it, if you can stick with it, just keep going. Because it's also very hard for people to stick with it for the longevity of their business. I mean, most businesses will fail after 5 years. And kind of like what you guys were talking about is you guys hit like a roadblock after your 6 weeks, I believe. And it's like that roadblock technically much shortened down, but you guys hit that early and you're able to adapt from that. So like what most businesses will do and brands, they'll hit like this roadblock, this like ceiling in their growth, and then they'll quit. They're not willing to adapt and continue growing, I guess.
Adapt and overcome.
Yes, adapt and overcome.
It's like that meme, dude.
Have you read the book The Alchemist?
No, I actually have it on my list to read.
Okay.
I'm
Book
currently
list.
reading it right now.
Yeah, so that would be
Nice.
another book that's like, I look at The Alchemist, it could just be titled The Backpocket. And what you're describing is like the first bit of the story, and this, not a big spoiler, but just kind of introductory to what The Alchemist is. He's in southern Spain and he's walking into Morocco to go on this journey looking for gold. And he gets to Morocco and he finds some like one-off thing that makes him stay in Morocco, and he loses out on his journey for a little bit. And like that little period is like him being almost complacent, looking at it like his wall came up and he didn't want to pursue his actual meaning to life anymore because he found some stability. And I mean, that little story can be found in everything, but I think The Alchemist does just a really good job of creating these like little mini parables, if you will, where you're like, holy shit, that's replicated everywhere. Like I can find that omen in every single thing I do. The Alchemist is basically finding your true north in a sense.
It's like it refers to as the personal legend.
Yes,
That's sweet.
Yeah,
That's cool.
And I think the caveat of my question is like, when I finished with always evolving, I kind of realized like, you know what, like your true north is never, it's never true, right? You're always
stays true.
It never stays true, right? It's not a beeline to the North Star. It's a journey and a path that's going to be changing, always. And I think that's, I really like that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
your true north.
And then what would you guys define as your true north in life?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Man, as a podcast, you're saying?
Just as a person.
Ooh, God. I mean,
Just like personal goal. Definitely can tie it into the podcast, but I believe that the podcast is also you guys as well.
right. I think,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
I think that's a fair thing. God, that's tough. Let me think about that.
Get some little elevator music. No,
No, you know what I really liked is you ever listen to the Elon Musk Joe Rogan podcast?
Oh yeah, that was great.
So like, if you go back and listen to that podcast, Joe Rogan was asking some, deep diving questions, and Elon would take 10 to 15 seconds, just complete silence. Joe wouldn't say anything. Elon wouldn't say anything, and Elon would just think.
And it seemed like he was malfunctioning.
It seemed like he was breaking down. He was busting out the seams. But I really do think like that question that you asked, like what is the true north of Backpocket, essentially, like that requires some time to think about it.
For me personally, like my North Star, or just like my true north, is leaving that positive impact like every single place I go. I have so much like internal like if you will, like empathy towards the situation presented. And when something goes awry, like that'll screw me up mentally for too long. Or like I over try to like make sure everyone's like comfortable and everyone's sitting in like the right spot and everyone's got their glass of water, if you will. My inner nature is to like make sure put people before me necessarily. And it has so much benefit because I get to see like people's faces light up when I have an opportunity to just have a conversation with someone at an event and truly invest my time into them and leave a positive impact. Or I get to sit and work on a brand all day long and push their digital marketing and then have a meeting with them the following day and be like, hey, I was able to drive this much revenue for you. That's like my internal motivation is driven through empathy. And it has its negative side when I don't necessarily put my true needs up first or I overextend myself. And that's a whole another like story in itself. But I like, as kind of, it sounds arrogant talking about it that way. It's like, oh, I'm this empathetic person. Like you should look at me better because I stated this on Evernorth podcast. No, I just genuinely love helping other people. And that's what fuels me every single day. And putting that time and effort into this vague thing called Backpocket has also helped in a tremendous way because it doesn't have the systematic approach that someone else can just tell you, like, here's the blueprint. And that I struggle with all the time. It's like I don't know what I need to pour into it for it to flourish. And at the end of the day, I literally just need to pour love into Backpocket. And that's what helps it flourish.
Yeah. I love that. Well said. I would say like
it was kind of spotty. It wasn't super well said,
good.
But okay.
That's good.
But that's exactly the point. Is I think when I look at like my own life, or I look at Backpocket, this thing that we're creating, I kind of feel like I'm looking at it kind of through a veil. Like it's a little blurry. You know what it is. You know what that person stands for, as in like me when I look in the mirror. But it's hazy, right? Because you're never going to have the perfect answer of who you truly are. You're never going to have the perfect answer of what you've built. You're only going to know about that when it's all over and it's done. That's the only time where it's never going to stop evolving. Like we started this podcast with, it's been cool to stay on the path that we wanted to travel, that we're choosing. And I think the commitment to that is the mindset of what Backpockets North Stars is. No matter which way you go, right, left, up, or down on your path towards that North Star, trusting the path and inspiring that path for others is really what I'm all about, what Andrew's all about. And I think what a lot of people are all about. I mean, when we get to put a piece of content out there, when we get to live our journey, our right, lefts, and ups and downs, someone's going to find a relatability aspect in that, put it in their back pocket, and then apply that to their next right turn or their next up. So altogether, I think again, we're giving back. We're doing this in the service of others, ultimately, with all the content we put out, all the different people we work with. But I mean, Backpocket is us too. Like it's fun being able to market and share the happiness that we're having, trying to build this thing, which is ultimately ourselves.
Yeah, I love it. If you guys could go camping for a week with 3 people, alive or dead, who would those three people be and why?
Camping.
Okay, 3 people. I love
camping.
I haven't been asked the interaction with 3 people. I've been asked who would you travel across the country with, like via like Amtrak, and just sit on a train and like get to talk to, dead or alive, which is a sweet question. And my answer to that one is always Muhammad Ali.
Nice.
So he would definitely be in my camping circle, but I have to think.
Why Muhammad Ali?
Muhammad Ali is one of the greatest competitors and also just influences from a lifestyle. Like he walked his own walk and had many failures, but so many successes, and he was trying to bring his community with him through the whole way. He was very outspoken in that, and that's something that I strive to be a little bit more. Like I want to have the confidence of how Muhammad Ali walks and carries himself that I personally don't have. And I just absolutely loved his courage to, to stand up for what he truly believed in. I don't agree with everything that he has to say, and I don't necessarily have to. I don't even know where to begin of what I would dive into his story and talk about. But Muhammad Ali is the greatest personal figure in my and like that I hold on that pedestal. But I gotta think of 2 other people.
Yeah. I would definitely say I would want to go like camping with Joe Rogan. I think that'd be sick as hell. That'd be like my current one, because I'm also trying to like diversify my campground. Like I'm not trying to pick 3 people that are alive, and I'm not also trying to pick 3 dudes. Like we got to find some like diversity in there, because I do think that's just it's important to have that perspective, especially if we're going on a camping trip.
Right.
So God, like part of me wants to say just like Albert Einstein would be so cool to just like understand his perspective of like where he came, how he got to where he is, and like the theories and things that he's doing. From a female standpoint, because I do want a female on this trip, I'm trying to think of like who that would be. Like Oprah would be pretty sick. I would say Oprah would be awesome.
Oprah would be
but I'm also
awesome.
trying to think of like who I look up to.
Yeah, it's a tough question, Austin. I'm a for the boys trip. This is the boys that I gotta have my dogs eat, and it's gonna be Muhammad Ali, Tiger Woods,
Nice.
and my dad.
Okay.
Cool.
Why Tiger Woods and your dad?
Tiger Woods, I guess I haven't really diversified my portfolio, because the reason I'm bringing all 3 of them,
They're all related.
the vision is or the motivation is through that competitive edge and through that just like belief in themselves. And I think that's just the coolest thing to admire too. And all 3 of them, you can look at like things that they did wrong that you have tremendous learning experiences from, which is amazing. Like Tiger Woods with his whole scandal with his wife and all his things he did outside of the golf course, and even on the golf course, he was an absolute asshole for the longest time. I'm reading his book right now, and I recommend that. It's not his book. 2 guys wrote it about him, but it's phenomenal. And then my dad, I mean, he's in the restaurant hospitality business. He offers his hand in service every single day.
I love his stories that he does on your
On
guys'
the Sundays.
Yeah,
on
right?
Sundays.
Like, people
Those are
love
great.
those.
He gets fired up. He fires everyone else up. And I see like my dad gets to win in that camping environment more than I do, actually, because like he looks up to Tiger and Muhammad, and that's why I look up to Tiger and Muhammad. Like that's probably why I'm bringing him with too.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I think I would go marry the virgin. I think that's my 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah. So just talk about a unique experience with Rogan, the Virgin Mary, and Albert Einstein. That's just 3 different time periods, 3 totally different mindsets. You get like a current mindset. You get like a game changing mindset, like someone who was just like so extraordinary from what his standpoint in life was, and then Mary's the start of it all. It's sick as hell.
And then if you guys could explore one place in the entire world, where would you go and why would you go there?
God, that's a good question. I do want to a place that's been super fascinating to me as of recent would be like Nepal. I had a buddy just go out there, and he basically did this like 6-month tour of just helping out different villages, like just build up infrastructure, and it just looked fascinating. It's so remote, it's so out there, and it's beautiful. I think knowing what I've done and what I did in Thailand for 2 weeks, like some sort of externally long trip that's remote for a couple months, I feel like is something that I would want to do on the horizon. Nepal being one of those that I see just as a feasible option right now.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I want to go to Mount Kilimanjaro with my brothers.
You're going to hike the whole thing?
And hike the whole thing.
Ooh.
Yeah. That sounds like a challenge and something that I can do with the people, like my brothers we absolutely, if we were to do that in the next 2 years, I think that would kickstart our brotherhood in just a really cool realm for the future. Like we'd have an active mind to do something similar like that going forward. And I'd have an active mind to do something similar to that with other people going forward. But I think the Mount Kilimanjaro is like my North Star right now of like an adventure that has the challenge, has the camaraderie, because it's not the most challenging climb ever. you could see a lot of people, your average Joe's going to hike it. I mean, you got Wim Hof climbing it in his t-shirt. I don't even think a t-shirt. I think he just hiked the whole thing.
Yeah, no shoes, no shirt.
No shirt.
Nothing.
Nothing. Like an absolute savage that he is. Mount Kilimanjaro, though.
Yeah, I like that. How about you? Where would you
for
go?
me?
Yeah.
2 years. I really want to go somewhere in South America, I guess.
America. Nice.
Partially just because it'd be really nice, and also because I'd be able to work there, be a digital nomad there as well, and not have the crazy time change that you do when you travel on the other side of the world.
So
Yes.
sad.
That is crazy.
So you're thinking far more logistically than
I
we
love
are.
that.
Yeah.
That's sick. That's awesome. Sorry, one other question. So, I would say last couple months we've been doing the Embrace North challenges, the workouts, and then the plunges. When we brought up Wim Hof, I was just thinking about how you were there. What did you think of that?
That was amazing. Like, I went to last weekend on Sunday.
Oh yeah, how was that?
Oh, it was really good. I think everyone pushed themselves more, I guess you could say, because they had like a 15-minute. Jason put on like a 15-minute meditation, like music, so no one really knew the time, and you were able to just like zone in and focus, I guess, more.
Whoa.
Because I know you guys like you do like
The chants
and stuff, and being able to just like sit there, focus, and just like breathe really helped a lot. So I think a good amount of people are able to stay in there for like 20 minutes, including myself.
Damn,
It was crazy.
I've done 20.
I come out and I like get back to the apartment. I'm like still shaking. And
yeah.
It's crazy, but yeah, I mean, just events like that, you appreciate a lot, especially like during times like right now, where being outside, being able to really like calm yourself as well and put yourself through stress. I think that helps. Yeah. How have you guys liked it?
You're spot on with that. Being able to put myself through that type of stress where I know I'm really not in any danger, but my body is going through an incredible amount of stress, and seeing how I can handle, what am I going to choose to do in that moment? Am I going to sit in it and appreciate that like I'm here with this group of people that are also challenging themselves? I get to challenge myself internally, or am I going to be like, why am I doing that? Like the why me card, a negative train of thought. And you can easily dive into those 100 times in the first 30 seconds you're in there. And that aspect, that's why I keep going back. It's like, it's never easier for me to get in that water. It's never easier the first 2 minutes you're in that water, but you know what to do mentally. You know how to handle that stress, and are you going to be able to carry that into your day-to-day with if you have a serious breakup or you lose your job, or even, you know, you have some stomach issues like you're dealing, you have too much dairy, and you know,
Andrew's lactose tolerant.
Lactose
He's
sensitive.
Sorry.
Yeah.
He's
And how am I going to
tolerant, but
handle those
sensitive.
moments of stress?
Right. It's what you got sitting up here on your wall. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And I
Yes. Shout
think-
out to Devin.
Yeah, shout out to
Devin's
Devin.
grandparents.
Yes.
Yeah, Devin's grandparents, absolutely. But yeah, it's so interesting that you brought that up, like how everything's so not normal now. Like everything's just for the time being. Hopefully, like it's a weird lifestyle shift, and it makes you, it challenges you in a different way. But at the same time, when you look at like jumping in the ice, like you're going through that unique experience almost every single time because of how, you know, much of a shock it is. Like this morning I woke up to go on a run, and I ran from our house back to the tub over on Cedar Lake, and I was literally about to jump in this morning at 6 a.m. and I got in there, and I realized, I was like, man, it's a lot colder, it's dark, no one else is here, like I could probably die if I'm not careful. So I didn't do it. But it was one of those things where like now I think, and like that is an insane story, I think. But what I'm kind of realizing now, which what you were talking about, is like we always want to, like we don't realize it, but we are always like yearning for like kind of feeling normal again. Like I was like, part of me now is like jumping in that water and like challenging myself, knowing that energy boost I get, knowing that fulfillment I get. And simply because it was taken away from me last week, I was like, I want to go do it again. And I convinced myself that night, even on my run there, I was like walking myself through how I was going to do it. And then just like, was like, okay, I might actually die. This isn't the best idea. But besides from that point, it's like when the normal's taken away, like it is right now, all we want to do is go back to that average, that normal, that ordinary. And you don't realize how important, how unique, and how great and fulfilling that ordinary is until it's gone. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a great time for all of us to like simply be able to look back at. I mean, I'm going to listen to this podcast a year from now or whenever Corona's done. Like anything that's really going on right now, and not a lot of people see a lot of suffering in it, but there's a lot of unique things happening right now that I don't think a lot of people fully realize yet. Not even each other, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. If you guys were to leave your last piece of advice right now, what would that be?
Like we were walking away from, like we were at Michael Jordan.
We're going to like Mars.
Yep,
Yeah.
you guys are going to Mars. Last time you were able to say anything on the Earth.
It's tough because like advice is so rooted in like something that I have done or something, in like what is that worth to a Taiwanese kid or something, you know? Like if you really want to stretch it at global.
There's a young podcaster out there that wants to get into podcasting.
Oh, specifically
but
to that.
he just needs like the advice to do it.
Yeah.
And
even like generally, then this would definitely attribute to that young podcaster. And that's who like we speak to most with Backpocket is, you know, those 18 to late 20s, maybe even early 30s, people that are, you know, quote unquote movers and shakers, people that are out pursuing their passions to their fullest. And it can be in that 9 to 5, and it can be in positions where they're entrepreneurs. But it's really just your neighbors and the people that you care about. And that's kind of like the demographic we're shooting at. And to kind of like the things that I reiterate to them as much as I can is radical transparency. I think that is the single thing that I remind myself every single day that helps me, you know, find my equilibrium again when times of stress occur and, you know, pressure and anxiety is rising. What do I have in my back pocket? It's radical transparency. It's being open and honest with myself and the people around me in healthy ways. I don't have to be an absolute dick when I'm practicing this radical transparency. Sometimes you have to be stern, but being open and honest, and like that's when I have so much fun with and people definitely see myself like my mood is enhanced when I am fully open to who I am.
Yeah, I like that. And I think kind of going off that, and what I was getting at too was like advice is very much rooted in who we all are individually, and then us being able to share that with others. You know, that's what advice is. So sometimes you have to take that with a grain of salt. And it's for every reason why I should not be practicing radical transparency. Like the shit that I think of sometimes is it could get me canceled, you know, with being a comedian or whatever. But
right.
Aside from that point, I think like if I'm gonna leave something with everybody, it's never stop pursuing who you are. And then be uncomfortable, even be comfortable with yourself while doing it. It doesn't matter. Like that, it's the relentless pursuit of finding who you are and knowing that you're really never going to actually find it. But that pursuit is what's going to keep you on the path of being the best version of yourself. And I think that's what we're all trying to do out here.
Mm-hmm. And then Declan and Andrew, how can people find you for events? I know Lincoln Drink was canceled for tomorrow.
Well, we'll be at the next one, April 22nd.
Yes.
Yep. And if you see Andrew, ask him about his heartburn. That's absolutely the first thing.
An absolute must.
That's all you always tell if like people are really listening, if they made it this far in the podcast. Like if they're coming up to Andrew, like, dude, heard about your heartburn. Please address that with Andrew.
Where can you find us?
Where else can you find us? I mean, we're on TikTok first and foremost at the Backpocket.
We actually got that name, which is huge.
It's huge.
Like
huge
we have
SEO.
at the Backpocket.
At the Backpocket.
Usually we have to resort to the Backpocket Podcast.
Yeah.
On everything, like our website, we're the backpocketpodcast.com, because when we initially got our website, the Backpocket was like $5,000, and you know we're not spending that on a URL.
Yeah.
So like the Backpocket Podcast is where you find us on everywhere. Twitter.
Backpocket's one word. So that's the key, right? Like we try our best to be at the top rankings for Backspace Pocket, but if you type in Backpocket one word, you will find us regardless. I think that if you're going to take anything away as a listener, you type in Backpocket one word on your search bar on iTunes, Spotify, you'll find us. Same thing with Instagram, same thing with Twitter, and of course TikTok. So go find us everywhere, I'd say. Yeah. And then obviously Declan and Andrew.
Yeah, and I'm Andrew, by the way.
Yeah, and that's Andrew, and I'm Declan.
5'10", 160 pounds. You're wildly average guy.
To the stats.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
Well, Declan, Andrew, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for just creating an awesome podcast and being a positive impact in the world. So thank you.
Thanks, brother. Fins up, man.
Sweet.
Fins up.
Thank you for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to leave a review on iTunes, share it with friends and family, and you can find us at ever_north on Instagram and Twitter, and EverNorthCo on Facebook.